What's up, everybody? Welcome to this week's Learning University. I'm Carly Motzer, joined with Jasmine Smart, and we are so excited to be talking to you guys about love languages.
All right, everybody. So I'm Jasmine, and the first question we have for you is, what is a love language? If you don't know what your personal love language is, you're in luck. We actually have the website on this slide for you to go and take that quiz so that the rest of this presentation will be a little bit more meaningful to you. So I'm going to pause for a second so you can go and take that quiz. All right, now that everybody's back, let's go back to the question, what is a love language? So a love language is one of 5 ways in which you specifically express love, either by giving it or receiving it. And this kind of encompasses all your relationships, whether it's your friends, your family, your significant other, or just people in your organizations or in your class.
Jasmine had mentioned that it kind of breaks down into 2 categories. So whether that be receiving love or giving love, those 2 categories are going to operate under the 5 different love languages the same way. So there's no difference between the 2. The only difference really comes about when receiving love is going to be like how you prefer to be loved by someone else or from someone else, whereas giving love is how you show your love. So for me personally, my favorite way to be loved is quality time. Whereas when I show my love for someone else, my favorite thing to do is acts of service. So as we go through these different love languages, you'll be able to kind of pick and see the differences between them and hopefully find some stuff that resonates with you. So for acts of service, if you love receiving acts of service, that is going to be because they are most meaningful when they come from intent and not obligation. You want people to be doing things for you because they want to, and it's something that they know makes you happy. It's not something that they feel like they have to do just because they're involved in your life. And so to make that more impactful, it's really important to be appreciative. Just because something is routine, so say for example, like my roommate does the dishes for me all the time because she knows I hate doing the dishes. It wouldn't be fair for her, or it wouldn't be fair to her, excuse me, to like be upset if one day she didn't do the dishes, because like just because it's something she does routinely, it's still something she's doing for me. And so that being said, the more you can communicate all of that, the more impactful and effective it's all going to be.
Absolutely. So if you know somebody whose love language is acts of service, then you may be asking, how do I show them this? So the big thing to remember is that actions speak louder than words. And I know my dad, this is his love language, and this is a phrase that he uses a lot. And what he means by that is that for him, me doing small acts like vacuuming or taking out the trash are the ways that I show him that I love him versus me just telling him I love him. Because to him, those small acts are more meaningful. The biggest thing is that, again, the small acts are just as meaningful as the big ones. You don't have to go out and, you know, completely redo your lawn and mow it and weed eat it and plant a bunch of flowers. Even something as small as doing the dishes is just as meaningful. The other big thing is that you always want to give 100% in whatever you're doing. So don't do something and, only give, 50%. You want to give it your all because that's how you really show somebody that you care. And also, if you say that you're going to do something, make sure that you follow through, because following through and actually doing the act of service is how they're going to feel the most loved. So the second type of love language is physical touch. And if this is your love language, then for you, being physically touched makes you feel like you're more seen and more safe. And kind of like with acts of service, the small actions are just as meaningful as the big ones. So you can simply hold somebody's hand or give them a hug, and that means just as much to you as if you were cuddling them. The biggest thing is you enjoy being close to the people that you love, and you want them to be surrounded by you. Or let me rephrase that. You want to be surrounded by the people that you love.
Absolutely. And that translates to giving love as well, because like this is one of those love languages that can kind of be like tricky to communicate. A little goes a long way. So like if someone's having a hard time communicating that this is their love language, like it's not always the easiest to be like, hey, I need a hug, or hey, like need my nervous system compressed, that kind of thing. Like I know that when I get really anxious, like my dog will lay on my chest because that compresses my nervous system. And so like those kind of things aren't always something that's super easy to talk about. And so when you can kind of sprinkle that human contact, interaction, that kind of stuff throughout the day, it's definitely going to be one of those things where a little does go a long way, and it's going to be super impactful. That being said, get creative. Like it doesn't always have to be hugs and hand holding. You guys can like sit in close proximity to one another. Like if you guys know you're going to be doing something like getting dinner, get a smaller table so that you are just closer. There are all kinds of ways that you can sprinkle this in throughout everything.
Absolutely. And so the third type of love language is quality time. And so, like Carly, this actually happens to be my love language as well. And so, for people like Carly and I, whose love language is quality time, it's the most meaningful when we have somebody's undivided attention. And so, this is really where quality comes into play because you can be spending time with somebody, but if they're on their phone or playing video games or distracted by something else, it's not as meaningful as if they're actually focused solely on you. These people tend to be good listeners because while they like somebody's undivided attention, they're also really good at giving their undivided attention to somebody else because that's what they like from one person. And it would be wrong to, expect a one-way street when we all know that love is a two-way street. And then finally, they really love being with the people that they love and sharing new experiences with them.
I really, really like how Jasmine had mentioned that it's a two-way street because that kind of segues us really well into the giving side as well. And so, like, when you think about giving your quality time, quality over quantity is infinitely as important as it is when it's being received. Because when you look at quality over quantity or time versus attention, it's one thing to be there, it's another thing to be deliberate and present and affectionate. And so, like, I always love my Kardashians. They're just the goofiest, funniest people out there, I guess. But, like, well, what are you doing later? Should we hang out all day? Hanging out all day is great and all. But, like, if I hang out with someone all day and I want to make sure that they know that, like, I'm giving them that time in my day because they're important to me and they're valued. I don't want to hang out with them all day, but then have not been present the entire time. So it's really just important to be intentional with your quality time. All right. And then, so kind of on the flip side of like quality time is giving or receiving gifts. So on the receiving side, it's pretty straightforward. Like it's exactly what it sounds like. People give you things. But so I kind of wanted to talk about more of like the meaning behind it. And I think it's really important to mention that it goes beyond the physical. Like when you see a gift, it's a physical representation of something. But when it goes beyond that, it's something that is meaningful and sentimental and conveys intention and thoughtfulness and lasting presence. And so it really, really, really emphasizes like the sentimental part. And I wanted to use a reference from, I don't know how many of you guys have seen Friends, but Rachel, notoriously hard to shop for, and Ross had gotten her this Christmas gift that she never ever wore. And it had become like one of those things where like she was stingy and impossible to shop for. And so she brought out this box of things that was like, okay, I might not have been super into the jewelry, but like I have this eggshell from the first time that you made me breakfast, or these ticket stubs from the first time that we went to a movie. And so gifts don't always have to be like this grandiose thing, but again, it just all circles back to intention and thoughtfulness and lasting presence.
Yep, Carly's absolutely right. And I love the Friends reference because it really hits the giving side right on the head. If Ross had just given her something that was really simple and personalized for her, it would have meant a lot more to her. So the big thing is, just like Carly's saying, you don't have to spend a lot of money to show somebody whose love language is receiving gifts that you love them. Something as simple as making them something from scratch that you have laying around the house is going to be just as meaningful as something big or expensive that you give them. The biggest thing is that by giving them something, it shows that you were thinking about them. And so, if you're out traveling somewhere and they've never been there, if you pick them up a little souvenir that's like $1 from a random gift shop and you bring it back to them, that's going to be super meaningful to them. because it shows that you were thinking about them while you were apart. And then the biggest thing is, again, making it personalized. So just like Rachel with all of her trinkets, those were personalized memories from the different experiences that her and Ross had. So for people whose love language is receiving gifts, always make it personalized, because you can give a gift, but if it's not a personalized gift, it's not going to mean as much to them. All right, so the last love language is words of affirmation. And so for these people, it's kind of the exact opposite of acts of service. So for
Mhm.
acts of service, it's actions speak louder than words. Well, for words of affirmation, it's words speak louder than actions. So these people like being told that they're loved, and they want to feel understood by your words. So you can, show that through writing them something, or simply just telling them how much they mean to you.
And again, with words of affirmation, like we had kind of talked about how it's the opposite of acts of service. We had brought up with acts of service how like they need to be intentional, and it's not just like doing something to do something. And that's kind of been a theme throughout all of our love languages, actually. But it's again is super, super important in the giving of words of affirmation, because you want to avoid empty compliments. You don't want to say things that like could have come from just anybody. Like the whole point is that you're being intentional with it, and that it is something from you to build them up. And most of the time, the way to speak best is to listen first. The more you listen, the more, what's the word I'm looking for? I guess the more prepared you are to speak more impactfully, and therefore focus on the affirmation part. So, like when you listen to them, you can hear what it is that they need to hear, and therefore can craft your sentiments in the way to make someone feel their absolute best.
All right. So now that you know your love language, hopefully throughout this presentation you found one and you're like, oh yeah, that's definitely me. I guess that's my love language. Or maybe you took the quiz and you're like, I know exactly what it is. So what now? The biggest thing is, again, love is a two-way street. So now that you know your own love language, you can tell other people, but also ask them what their love language is, because that lets you best show them your love. So remember, everybody's not the same. So what your love language is may not be the love language of your best friend or your parents or your significant other. And so that being said, knowing their love language and how you can best show them that you love them is really going to help your relationship. And so this can even trickle down into the organizations you're in, or your coworkers, or basically any relationship that you have, because again, you want to show people that you care. And so knowing what best fuels them is really going to help you show those people that you care.
And now we kind of get to the fun part of how you can enact this in your life. We put dates up there. We have tried to mention throughout that like love is lots of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be romantic. Like be so as far as our dates went, we tried to sprinkle in like some platonic ones, some friend ones, some romantic ones, whatever it is. So that way you can get creative and kind of employ these however you choose in your life. But for acts of service, a fun one, go through your friend's closet and have a little like hot versus not fashion show. And then at the end, you can take all of the knots to Goodwill for them, and they'll have a nice clean closet, and it's something you guys can do together. For physical touch, try cooking a meal, but here's the kicker. Each of you can only use one hand. You're gonna have to get super creative of how you can help each other out and mix these things in, and it's gonna be a lot of like very close quarters, personal time together. Nothing screams quality time like a road trip. You get to figure out this person's music taste, what they think about when they're bored. The four doors of that car are going to emphasize so much quality because you don't have the option to be anywhere else. If receiving gifts is your kind of thing, one of the things we really tried to drive home was making it intentional. And so something you could do on that note is make a little shadow box with memories of each other. You can use eggshells from a breakfast you made, or ticket stubs, or I know like when I go ice skating, I always keep the little wristbands and stuff. There are all kinds of things you can throw in there, and then it's a present, but it's so much more than that. And finally, with words of affirmation, it's kind of hard to make a date out of talking, right? So something you could do is what I called a metaphor painting. And so I'll use the example of my best friend. Like, I think she is this super strong, powerful woman, and she just kicks butt at everything she does and is just queen of the jungle. So I could do like a painting of a lion, and then I would give that to her, and she would know that like that's how highly I think of her anytime she sees that painting. But as with any of these, you can put your own little spin on it, get creative, and have some fun.
Absolutely. Thank you, Carly. Blah, I could not spit out your name. All right, guys, that concludes our presentation. So here are your takeaway questions so that you can get credit for your Leadership University. And we encourage you to, now that you've seen this one, go and continue watching other ones brought to you by the Office of Student Engagement. I hope you all have a great day, and thanks for joining us.